ultimately, at the end of the day, you're only making something because it makes somebody else happy, you know, because it's actually going to benefit them. And so unless you're really, really clear on who is it going to benefit, why do they care, then you're not really going to have something that you can pitch.
Welcome everyone to UpTech Report. This is our Founder's Journey series. UpTech Report is sponsored by TerraLeap. Learn how to leverage the power of video at terraleap.io. I'm very excited to be joined again with my guest, Shane Hodgkins, based in Melbourne, Australia. He's the co-founder and CEO of Matrak. Now this is part two. Our first part was really diving into Matrak, how it is solving the supply chain management solution in construction in a new and interesting way using machine learning to look at all the materials and then understand how and where it's coming into play. Definitely listen to part one. Now, this discussion though, Shane, I want to hear more about your journey. I mean, last 3-4 years that you've really been working this full time to bring this software to life. Tell me, what is your story? How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so my brother actually, who's the other co-founder, is the one who's like responsible for all this, I guess. So basically, he was working for my dad's window installation company while he was studying his master's in computer science and machine learning, and so his job was basically all of these shipments of materials would turn up at the job site, and he had to find them all, get them unpacked, and put them in the right order so that people could go through and install them. But what he found was that all of the information that he had about what was actually being shipped was just generally like pieces of paper that would get handed to him that would just have handwritten notes with just serial numbers. And so you'd get all of these and they'd often have like just random bits and bobs. And so you have to try and find the ones in the right sequence. It's sort of like dealing with like really jumbled up Lego pieces with no instructions or something like that. And so, so obviously that was a nightmare. So he decided to make an app just because he wanted an excuse to make an app, basically, to be able to track all of the materials. So what shipments had arrived, whether they'd been installed, if they had any quality issues. And so he started doing that and it just really quickly blew up. So very quickly, not only was my dad's company constantly calling like him to be able to find out where these materials were, because they had no other way of really keeping a record of it. But actually these huge multinational suppliers from China were actually calling him as well because they didn't have a record of what had left their factories. And so, yeah. And so then the builders as well, the general contractors got in touch and said, we kind of want access to this, but not just for Windows, but for every trade. And so we spent quite a few years, basically, while juggling sort of full-time work and everything, building this system out, running a number of sort of prototypes and sort of pilots with companies. And eventually we got sort of a critical mass of paying customers that we had to sort of take the plunge and, you know, live off cup noodles for 6 months or something. And yeah, and it's kind of been, that's how we got started, I guess.
I love these types of stories where you're in the mix, you see the problem, and you're like, I gotta solve this just even for myself. And then people are saying, hey, actually, can you do this, and then it grows into an actual solution. So it was about 7 years ago that you first discovered the problem, and then it took a couple of years, till 2017, till that you jumped in full time. Like at that timeline, correct?
And it was 2018. We actually were mid 2018 when we came in full time, but we had kind of the product with customers using it since 2017.
Gotcha. As you decide to go full time, any in the past time have you decided to raise any funds? Or have you been bootstrapped the entire time?
So yeah, so we knew that for the type of problem that we were tackling, especially as like a network business connecting different players, we really were expecting any second one of the huge players in the industry to just come in and just like do it and just like wipe us out. And so it meant that we always were really focused on how can we grow as quickly as possible, because actually having that customer base is like, would be our mode, you know? And so we bootstrapped for the first many years, but it was 2018 that we got actually one of my colleagues had been kind of following the story. It was actually super cool of him, and just said, look, you guys are doing amazing things. Here's 50 grand. I want to see you guys succeed. Like, give me some shares and off we go. And so that was what gave me the money to actually be able to go full time in the first place. And then we sort of raised our first angel round about 6 months later. And we've done a couple of other rounds since then.
what would you say is the most important lesson you've learned in pitching and fundraising?
Um, I mean, this is going to sound cliched, but I think really being able to explain who your customers are is the biggest one, and why they
Not about your
care.
product, but who your customers are.
Yeah, because because I think a lot of people have solutions that are kind of looking for a problem. And, and it was one of the biggest lessons for me because I get so excited about the tech that I'd want to talk about what we'd built and how it could work and what the future of the product would be. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're only making something because it makes somebody else happy, you know, because it's actually going to benefit them. And so, unless you're really, really clear on who is it going to benefit, why do they care, then you're not really going to have something that you can pitch.
I love that. I love that. Now, one thing is getting the funding, getting the money. The next is, if you want to scale, is building a team.
Yeah,
How many folks do you have today?
we're just on 31 now.
31. So, building that team, growing that team, what would you say is the one of the biggest mistakes one could make when it comes to hiring?
Oh my God, such a loaded question. But yeah, I I mean, everyone as they grow and scale and everything is going to go through periods where they make mistakes. I think probably actually one just rookie mistake that I made a bit at the start was not doing enough reference checks. Just like if you interview someone a couple of times and you think they're really good, then you know, all right, let's just hire them. But honestly, there's no uh, there's no alternative substitute, I guess, for actually finding out from people that they've actually worked with how they've gone. But that being said, like we've been super, super lucky. Many of our team actually headhunted Matrak, which is fantastic. And so many of the people that I work with are all really, really entrepreneurial. A lot of them have run their own startups in the past. A lot of them come from the construction space as well. And yeah, I'm actually mega, mega pumped by the people that I'm working with. We've been very lucky.
On that note, do you prefer to have people who have industry knowledge, or do you prefer people who just have general knowledge and have good ethic, and then you give them the knowledge of the industry? Which do you prefer, or does it matter?
It's a great question. So to begin with, we definitely lent heavily on people with that construction knowledge because there's so much jargon. And if you're, especially if you're meeting a customer for the first time and they start, you know, talking to you about like this stillage with this spandrel on it, and you're like, unless you can say, oh, I know what that means and I know what your problem is, yeah, then you're not going to be able to like have that connection. And so definitely that was really important to begin with. But as we're sort of scaling the company now, and we've got a lot more of our processes in place and better sort of training and documentation and stuff like that, I think for us, getting a lot more sort of SaaS and sort of tech growth experience is probably our focus at the moment.
You've got funding, you've got the team now to market and grow. What would you say are some of the most common mistakes that you have seen people are making, or you've made yourself, when it comes to marketing in today's environment?
Yeah, yeah, it's a really good one. There's I guess I mean, honestly, the biggest thing depends on where you're pitching. Actually, no, I've got a really good one. So, when we were first starting, I was like, I'm first time founder. I'd never run a business like this before. And so I was like, oh, I guess we have to sound like a business. We have to look like a business. What do businesses look like? They all look boring. We need to look boring. And so, and yeah,
Wait,
and
how
it
do we look
wasn't,
boring?
yeah, I know, 100%. And but it wasn't until we actually have we work with a marketing agency, Character and Distinction in Australia, and their founder is one of our advisors, and she actually spent a lot of time with me to begin with, saying like, look, you're doing this because you actually care about it, which is obviously the case. And so people want to know that you're doing something that you care about. So just you can put yourself into it. You can talk just honestly about why you care about this stuff. And that was like such a light bulb moment for me and has just made work so much fun because like the idea that we've just a bunch of nerdy guys trying to help out construction people, like I just love that. It's really fun. And it's something that makes you want to get up in the morning. So I think being able to have that authenticity is something that I didn't realize to begin with, but I think it's a great lesson.
An authentic founder story is a powerful marketing piece by itself. You don't have to be a faceless corporate organization to market well.
Exactly, exactly.
I love it. I love it. Moving towards it in this environment that we're in, COVID, it's affected everyone differently, and I'm not sure how for you guys down there. What do you see as the challenges going forward to get in front of people's faces and their eyes, get their attention in this environment we're in, and everyone's kind of distracted and things are going on?
Yeah, totally. So Australia is definitely very, very lucky as far as that goes. We've just been able to reopen interstate travel and stuff. So only in the last week, we've finally been able to actually meet some of our customers face to face that I haven't seen in like 12 months. But, and it was interesting as well because so much construction stuff comes from China and they very quickly were able to reopen a lot of their factories and things like that. And so we had to learn very quickly about remote onboarding and remote support to be able to help all of these like massive companies that were coming on board. But we'd always sort of relied on just being able to fly over and spend a week with them. But now we had to do everything over WeChat, and yeah, it was pretty hectic. So I think, I don't know if I can necessarily give any lessons for people. I was really pleasantly surprised at how well the team went, and actually how many customers came to the party and how quickly it became normal to just be doing things over Zoom. And so it actually was less of a challenge than I would have expected, like a lot less than I expected. But the flip side of that, which is especially obvious as we've been able to travel again, at least interstate, is that there's really no substitute for being able to just like gossip and chat and build relationships and have those conversations that aren't work related. That can often really help your business a lot more than having to have dedicated set meeting times. So that's a challenge. I don't know how to overcome that yet, but
it's a challenge that other SaaS and tech companies are looking to solve. I've interviewed a few, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of new solutions popping up to help address that need.
Yeah, totally.
Speaking of how you've grown as a leader over these years and managing the team, any books, audiobooks, podcasts that you have enjoyed and would recommend?
I'm not sure. I mean, to be honest, probably the biggest one that I really get into is one called Review the Future, which is not really as founder related, but it's very tech related. And so for me, what they do is they really push forward and look at sort of what the impact on sort of society and culture could be of a whole lot of current tech. And I think having that really futuristic sort of view of things gives you a different angle from which to look at today's problems. And so I just find that really inspiring, and it really helps sort of create that vision for what we want to build here.
I like that. Review the Future?
Yeah.
All right. Last question for you, Shane. What kind of tech innovations do you predict we will see in the near term, next year or two, and long term, 5-10 years from now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess probably more generally, I am really pumped for some of the recent AR glasses that have come out that are really cheap and actually seem to be able to just work with your mobile phone and things like that. And I assume that that's going to have to be the future, because like I'm one for always just like looking at my phone while I'm walking around and then like banging into light bulbs and things like that. So being able to actually just be able to do work while you're in transit hands-free, I think is going to be a big one. But who knows? I think especially in the construction tech space, it's such a early stage. It's really a mature market. And so I think probably B2B generally, and certainly things like agri-tech and stuff is going to really explode. But I guess we'll see.
For those that want to learn more about Matrak, make sure you check out part 1 of our discussion to hear all about how they are changing the game when it comes to supply chain management in construction. You can go to also matrak.com and you can be able to get a free trial. Thanks again, Shane. It's great to have you on, man.
Yeah, it's been really fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone again for joining us. Our sponsor today is TerraLeap. If your company wants to find out how to better leverage the power of video to increase sales and marketing results, head over to terraleap.io and learn about the new product, Customer Stories. Thanks everyone. We'll see you next time. Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.